Like it? Okay.
I love it.
We are recording now. We are now recording. All right. Welcome to Tzvi. Okay. And Heshi is here. Good. Menachem Mordechai, great. Look, we have so many wonderful people joining with us tonight. Baruch Hashem. Okay. If this doesn't work, we'll try something else. But right now, Baruch Hashem, we have a good beginning. We are about to start tonight's Shiur, and we are recording already. I'm going to mute everybody at some point. We will take questions when we're finished with the Shiur on the halachas of Purim. But to start, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the Parsha very quickly, just a few short notes, and we're going to see if we can get the screen share going over here and get everybody to join in with the screen share. If you'll give me a moment, we will get to it right now. That's not up there yet, but give me a moment. It's going to be there. All right. Get this down and get a hold of this. Okay. And then we go like this. Okay, and then we go back to this. Whoops.
Bless you.
Listen.
Back to this. Okay, we're back here. We're going to screen share now. Okay, it'll take a moment. Here we are. Okay, now Bose, we are now screen sharing. You can see the beginning of this week's Sedja. We're going to start with one or two very quick things about Parshas Terumah, and then we're going to go right into Hilchos Tanis Esther and Purim. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the pasuk, very, very, very famous pasuk here in Perek Chafei, pasuk Ches, in which says, "V'osu li mikdash," they shall make for me a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'socham, and I will dwell in their midst. In their midst. This is the very important words, of course, when we realize we're building a Beis HaMikdash, we want the Beis HaMikdash, of course, to be the place where the divine presence dwells and that we can share in imbibing from that divine presence. But Hashem is telling us that the main divine presence that we should be concerned about is, they shall make for me a sanctuary. But not that I will dwell in that sanctuary, but rather, the shachanti b'socham, I will dwell in their midst. Hashem wants to dwell in the sanctuary of the heart of every single Jew, not just in a building. That's the first thing I wanted to point out today in the Parsha. The second thing is that the very first...
Rabbi, excuse me, I think you have to mute because there's a lot of what's going on.
Okay, give me a moment. We'll try to get to that. Okay, we'll try to get to that. What we'll have to do is we'll have to get to this and mute. I'm muting everybody. Okay, I'm muting as of now. Okay. All right, everybody's been muted. If you want to unmute, that'll be later. Okay. Now, it says here, when making the Aron, please take a look. Number one, v'atsu Aron atzei shitim. They shall make an Aron made out of shittim wood. All right? Then it says, Vitzi pisa oso zahav tahor. You should overlay it with pure gold. And then it says, Mi bayis umichutz titzapenu. You are to overlay it on the inside and on the outside with gold. Rabosai, I want you to know that what the Torah is telling us here is that there were three different Aronos. There were three of them. On the outside was a box of gold. On the inside of that was a box of wood. On the inside of the box of wood was another box of gold. That box of gold that was put inside the box of wood, if you can use your imagination, please, had an overlay of gold all around, so that when we saw the Aron both inside and outside looked as if it was gold, but on the inner core of the Aron, it was made out of wood. Says Rav Shamshon Raphael Herzl, he says what the Torah is teaching us is, on the outside, a Jew has to be impervious, like gold, the precious metal gold, which is impervious to the elements. So too should the Jew be solid gold and not allow the outside elements to affect in any way the Aron, the repository of the Torah. On the inside, the Jew has to be made out of a growth material. We have to be made out of wood, which comes from a tree and grows. Because what Hashem is telling us, says Rav Hirsch, is that the Torah is solid gold on the outside, but on the inside, we have to be able to grow. And consequently, the message at the beginning of Parshas Terumah is clear. And we're going to stop the share right now and get back to our view. The message of the Parshas Terumah is as clear as day. The purpose of all of our Jewish life is not only to be impervious to change from the outside, but to constantly be capable of growing, developing, and becoming somewhat better on the inside. Now that's a tall order, and it takes a tremendous amount of effort. But over the years, slowly, small incremental steps at a time, we are capable of looking back and saying, I've accomplished this. I've accomplished this mitzvah that until now was a little bit more difficult for me. And now I've made it mine. I've owned it. I've been able to grow in this mitzvah. And it doesn't have to be everything all at once. And it shouldn't be everything all at once. It should be a little bit at a time, so that we are constantly in the growth mode. Okay, we are now going to get to our main focus tonight, which is a week before Purim. I wanted to speak about the halachas of Purim, especially as relates to our pandemic times, and it has many, many challenges, and we want to still do it right. So we're going to start with Parsha Zachor. This Shabbos is Parsha Zachor. Now, there are still many people who do not go to shul, understandably. Even though our shul, Baruch Hashem, we are very careful, thank God. We have a lot of support from all the members and friends. No one in our shul is allowed to come in without a mask. I've often said, I have the unique privilege of standing in the front and looking out, so I became the Sar HaMaskim, I'm the master of all the masks to tell everybody to put on the right mask. But we are doing it. But despite that, there are some people who still are very cautious and wary, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. If their immune system is compromised in any way, or they're susceptible to germs, it's the right thing to do to stay away. What do you do with Parsha Zachor? How do you fulfill the mitzvah of Parshas Zachor? Okay, so if you are fortunate enough to have a Sefer Torah at home, you can read Parshas Zachor in your Sefer Torah at home, if you are fortunate enough to have a Sefer Torah. Not many have that good fortune, but if you do, you can read it Shabbos morning. It's found at the end of Parshas Kiseitze in Devarim. It is found in the maftir of Parshas Kiseitze in Devarim, and you say the 3 psukim that have to do with remembering to wipe out Amalek. Now, this mitzvah of remembering to wipe out Amalek is a mitzvah that, according to many poskim, is a mitzvah min haTorah. That means it has a special force of an oraisa law, and consequently, we have to fulfill it at least once a year. If you cannot come to shul on Shabbos to hear Parsha Zachor, there are two other options. Number one, if you will come to shul on Purim itself, according to the Magen Avraham, if you hear the reading of the Megillah and the reading of the Torah reading on Purim day, which is not taken from Parshas Kiseitze, it's taken from Parshas Beshalach, but it also speaks about Vayovo Amalek. And according to the Magen Avraham, if you hear Vayovo Amalek and the reading of the Megillah, you are going to fulfill the mitzvah of remembering Amalek to wipe it out. Not everybody agrees with the Magen Avraham, but that is his opinion. And according to that opinion, we would be Yotzei with Parsha Zachar by listening to the Kriyas on Megillah and the Maftir, the reading of the Torah on Purim. Another option is that Amir Hashem, God willing, on August 21st, 2021, is Shabbos, in which we will be reading Parshas Kiseitze in Chumash Devarim. If you go to shul on that Shabbos, which by then we hope God will guide us properly, will be finished with some of this very difficult pandemic, maybe then you can come to shul and hear it then and fulfill the mitzvah that way. So if you can't come to shul on Shabbos, but you can come when Purim comes, you can fulfill the mitzvah along those lines. That's as far as Pasha Zochak is concerned. The next step in our observance of the upcoming Yom Tov, of course, is Tainus Esther. Tainus Esther is next Thursday. The fast begins in the morning. There are different opinions as to the time the fast begins. Those differences of opinion are of a minor nature. The truth of the matter is, you can choose the latest beginning time to start your fast. Those who would like to perhaps follow a more strict time, which is a personal choice, kol hakavod. Those times will be posted on our website. By the way, I should mention that you can go to our website to fulfill many of the mitzvahs of Purim, which I'll speak about as time goes on. But you can look at the times on our website. I'll tell you what those times are. Rav Moshe Feinstein Zal lived on the Lower East Side. He lived right across the street from the Brooklyn Navy Yard. The Brooklyn Navy Yard had very sensitive instruments. It was called the Measurement of Naval Observatory Time. Rav Moshe discovered that the Naval Observatory time of the first dawn, which is when the fast begins, was about 15 to 20 minutes earlier than the average time. So that this Thursday morning, the earliest time to begin the fast is going to be 4 minutes after 5. That means if you want to get up before 4 minutes after 5 and eat so that you'll have strength to fast the rest of the day, you're allowed to do that. If that time is too early for you, the next time is 16.1 degrees below the horizon. When the sun is 16.1 degrees below the horizon, the first rays of light begin to appear. And according to many, that is called Alos HaShachar. And that Zman is going to be at 5:15, approximately 10 minutes after Reb Moshe's Zman. But you can choose the even later time, which is 72-minute constant, 72 minutes prior to sunrise, Nates, HaNates HaChama, when the sun rises. So 72 minutes before that is 5:25. You can start your fast at 5:25. That's the latest that you can start your fast. So if you want to get up before 5:25 and eat before 5:25 so that you can fast the rest of the day, kol hakavod. It's certainly acceptable. You don't have to go to the earliest Zman. We put them there for those who are interested. But as a kahila, we may begin the fast at 5:25. That fast is an underrated fast because it doesn't end until after the reading of the Megillah. But If you are incapable of fasting till after the reading of the Megillah, you may take a snack and eat it after the hour of 6:20. I believe the hour that it ends is 6:28. Some have 6:24, but that's all right too.
Yeah, take 6:24 newsletter.
Yeah, the newsletter is 6:24. That's okay. It's acceptable. It's acceptable. From 6:24 on, if you need a snack, you can eat a snack beginning at 6:24. Not a whole meal, just a snack, and then hear the Megillah. We'll get to.
What time are you allowed to head? What time
We are going
would
to-
you be able to start the Megillah?
Hold on. Before we go any further, Beth-El, I have to interrupt and tell everybody once again, questions I will take after we're finished, because otherwise we're never going to get to the end. So hold your questions, please write them down. Don't forget them. They're probably very good questions, but I'm going to ask everyone to just please write them down and ask at the end so that we manage to finish all the basic points, and then we will try to address any questions, shilas, or what to do with them. Okay, now, who has to fast on Tanis Esther? The din is la halacha, basically, every male and female, every man and woman amongst the Jewish people above the age of 12 for girls and above the age of 13 for boys is required to fast on Tanis Esther unless one is ill or unless one has a condition which doesn't allow them to fast. If someone is ill or has a chronic condition or is especially weak, like for instance, the halacha brings down pregnant and nursing women, and some of you guys stop laughing because I know you can't say I can't become pregnant, right? But the point is, everyone who is not sick has to fast. If we're not ill and we're not sick, we have to fast. Now, if there's any question about illness, even a slight illness, one does not have to complete the fast. But otherwise, we're Baruch Hashem mostly very healthy people. And consequently, we should fast on Tanis Esther. It's important to participate in the tsaros of the Jewish people because the one who participates in the tsaros will ultimately come to participate in all the simcha of Klal Yisrael. So please join with us on that fast on Tanis Esther. It's a very unusual fast because it's not so much a sad fast. It's amazing. The fasts that have to do with the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash are filled with sadness. But Tanis Esther is filled with anticipation. And according to the Mishnah Berurah, the reason that we fast is as follows. Because whenever the Jews went to war, they fasted. I'm not talking about the warriors. The warriors did not fast. We have a special proof of that from Yehonah's son, Shaul's son. When it came time to fight the Plishtim and he hadn't eaten, he put his stick, as the pasuk says, into the Ya'aras Devash, into the honeycombs of honey, and ate some, and he became much stronger. So those who are fighting in the army don't have to fast. But all the other Jews fast on behalf of the army to see to it that the army is victorious. We're fasting on Tanis Esther because the Jews were fighting a war on the 13th of Adar. They were fighting for their very lives because Haman, the wicked Haman, you can turn your graga now, yeah. The wicked Haman plotted to kill the Jews on the 13th. And the Jews got permission from Achashverosh to stand up and fight against him. And they did. And they went to war against Haman and his cohorts. Those Iranians haven't changed much since then. And we were victorious. And because we were victorious, we celebrate the victory with a day of partying on Purim Day. In Shushan, they were still fighting on the 14th. Consequently, they celebrated on the 15th. Okay, that's Tanis Esther. It starts at dawn. It ends after the reading of the Megillah. If you can't, you can eat a little bit after dark, which is after 6:24, or the latest month, 6:28. And then have a snack and be capable of fasting, of enjoying the yontif of Purim. Now, another mitzvah that comes before the reading of the Megillah is the machzis hashekel. There's a custom amongst the Jewish people to give a half of the coin of the realm. Used to be the shekel. In America, it's the dollar. You have a half of a dollar. Now, some say it should be a half of a silver dollar. A half dollar that's made out of silver. Now, if that would be the case, what if you don't have a silver dollar? So there are a number of options. Number one, since it says that you're supposed to give the machzis hashekel 3 times, it says shekel 3 times, you'll notice that in many shuls, they take 3 half dollars and they tape them together, and a person goes over to the plate where the 3 shekels are, and they pick it up and put it down so that they show it's mine and I'm giving it, and then they'll give some money to tzedakah to show that they acquired the right to handle those shekels and to give the machzah shekel by lifting them up and putting them down. Now, the truth of the matter is, you should actually give the value of 3 half dollars, which means $1.50. $1.50 is the value of 3 machzis shekel, 3 half shkolim. However, there is an opinion brought down in the Kaf HaChaim that one should actually give a half silver dollar made out of real silver. And a silver dollar today, in the most recent silver weight category, which was published on the January 31st in 21, there are 14, is it 14? 19. There are 19.2 grams of silver in a half silver dollar. And at the rate of 19.2 grams of silver, an entire dollar of silver would be worth $17. There's that much silver in a pure silver dollar. So a half dollar would be $8.50. So according to some poskim, what you should give as a machzis hashekel is not $1.50, but $8.50. Now, you don't have to do that because we don't generally go with the stricter rule on the machzis hashekel. And the reason is because machzis hashekel is only a reminder. Now, why do we give the machzis hashekel? We give it because at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, beginning in the month of Adar, we began to collect the machzis hashekel in order that by Nisan, which begins the new year, in the month of Nisan, on 1 Nisan, all the karbanos, all the coming close offerings that the Jewish people were going to bring were going to be bought with the new shkolim that were given by the Jewish people. And each Jew gave a machzis hashekel. So as a reminder and a remembrance of the machzis hashekel, we also give the machzis hashekel today, but it's only a zecher. And since it's only a zecher, you don't have to give $8.50. You can give $1.50 and be successful. Now, in the pandemic, there are many people who are wary of picking up things that other people touched, which is totally understandable. There should be gloves, plastic gloves available, and anyone who picks up the machzis hashekel should be wearing a plastic glove. And after you pick it up, put it down, take the glove off and throw it away. Don't touch the coins again, so that no one has to touch anyone else's germs, because this pandemic is dangerous. It's still not settled. And God forbid, we don't want anyone to get sick at all. So you have to really be somewhat cautious during this period of time. And when it comes to the machzis hashekel, to wear gloves when you are handling the machzis hashekel. Okay. It's usually given before mincha on Tainus Esther, but if you didn't give it before mincha, you can give it before the reading of the Megillah. If you didn't give it before the reading of the Megillah, you can give it tomorrow morning on Purim, before the reading of the Megillah. And now we come to the Kriyas HaMegillah. The din is that every single Jew has to hear the reading of the Megillah 2 times, once at night and once in the morning. And it's very interesting that the halacha says that we're chayiv to the reading of the Megillah balayla v'leshanosa bayom. And leshanosa means and to learn it during the day. Again, so leshanosa has one of 2 meanings. One, it means you should learn it well. And 2, it should be sheni, a second time. I heard from a charusa of mine, Reb Chaim Jachter, who I discussed this with once, and he told me over in the name of Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik Zal, who was his Rebbe, he told me over that Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik Zal said that there's a specific reason why the halacha says l'shanoso bayom, because the first time the Megillah is read on Purim night, and you can tell me if this is authentic or not, but I know it is to me. When that Megillah is read on the night of Purim, I know the story, you know the story, but it's so exciting every time we read it anew. We can't wait till we get to that part where Balayla Nadidosh Nasamelech, where the king couldn't sleep, and he called Haman, and he said, Haman, what do I do with the person I want to show favor to? And Haman thinks to himself, it's me. And Hashem, of course, puts into the mind of the Achashverosh, whatever you said, go do to Mordechai. And you sense the overturning of the entire Megillah that was before that happening right before your eyes. The turnabout, as the Malbim called it. The Malbim wrote a sefer on the Megillah called Turnabout, V'nahapochu. The whole thing turns upside down, and you can sense it. And so exciting that you don't pay close attention to some of the nuances that are underlying the Megillah. And that's why you read it a second time during the day, because the next day now I can pay more attention to the small print. I can pay attention to the fine nuances that are there. Here's one. Listen to this. When you hear the Megillah reading, and I'm going to mention this again, if I remember next Wednesday night, when I'm giving a shiur on the Megillah, find Hashem's name hidden in the Megillah. That's your challenge. It's there, but it's hidden. And I want you to look for it. And when you hear it, you will recognize it. But it is hidden. Anyway, so the whole thing turns around. And therefore, you have to read it a second time in order to appreciate all that's going to be going on in the Megillah. Now, both men and women have to hear this reading. Now, because of the pandemic, some people, as we said, do not go to shul. Now, listen to this. The Moshe Feinstein Zecher Tzadik Levracha has 2 interesting tshuvas in the Igros, one in Chelek Beis and one in Chelek Daled. And this is what he answers. In Chelek Beis, he's dealing with a woman. Can she be Yotzei, the mitzvah of Havdalah, by hearing it by telephone? Here's a woman who was in the hospital and she couldn't be home to hear Havdalah. And there was no one around her to say Havdalah for her. So she wanted to know if she could call her home where her husband is making Havdalah and hear Havdalah over the telephone and be Yotzei with Havdalah. And Rav Moshe answered in the affirmative, that even though you're hearing it over the telephone, you are hearing Havdalah. He has a very nice discussion in this particular tshuva of someone who said to him, but you're not hearing the real voice of the person. You're hearing the amplification of the telephone. And he said, I'm not so sure about that, because if the person wouldn't be speaking, I wouldn't be hearing. So even though I am hearing some amplification, but if the person wouldn't be speaking, I wouldn't be hearing. Consequently, the woman at the other end is Yotzei. And then in Chelek Daled, he was asked the question of what happens if they read the Megillah using a microphone. If there's a microphone in the shul. So at the very beginning of that tshuva, it's a very interesting tshuva, if you have a chance to take a look at it. He has, in that tshuva, Rav Moshe goes at the very beginning and says, The whole idea of a microphone in a shul is not a pleasant one. It shouldn't be there. He right away speaks about the microphone, but he ends up by saying that even though what you're hearing is the amplification of the microphone, once again, if the person wouldn't be speaking, you wouldn't be hearing it. And even though lichatchila, to begin with, in the best way to perform the mitzvah, this is not acceptable. If you did, in fact, hear the reading of the Megillah through the microphone, if you follow along every word with the Megillah, you are Yotzei the mitzvah. Now, because of the unique technological advancements that have been taking place over the years, it would appear, based on Rav Moshe's tshuva, that if you would go on a Zoom, just like we have right now, if you would be on a Zoom and I would be reading the Megillah, and you would have a Megillah in front of you to follow along the reading as I read the Megillah, you would be Yotzei the mitzvah, 100%.
But it would have to be a kosher Megillah.
Hold on. We'll get to the questions in a minute. Hold on. As long as you have a Megillah, you can be Yotzei the mitzvah. What happens if you don't have a Megillah? And by the way, again, this is not lechatchila. Lechatchila, you should try to be in shul if possible. But you can't. If you can't, this would be the number one best way if you have a Megillah. Secondly, if you don't have a Megillah, and many people do not have a kosher Megillah. By the way, most Megillahs are kosher, even if they're missing a word here and there, because as long as they're not missing a whole inyan, the halacha of Megillah is that it's still a good Megillah. As long as it's not missing from the very beginning or from the very end. It's only missing in the middle a little bit, you are going to be Yotzei the mitzvah. But if you don't have a Megillah, what do you do then? Once again, not lechatchila, but b'di eved. Get a hold of a Tanakh. In other words, it shouldn't be just a Chumash, but it should be a Tanakh that has all Tanakh, all the 24 books of Tanakh. There's an edition of a Koran Tanakh, and follow in the Tanakh, because that's also considered a Sefer Torah of sorts. It's considered the next best thing because it is an entire Tanakh. So if you can read from an entire Tanakh, just the Megillah, as it's being read along by the Baal Koreh on Zoom, may Iker Hadin B'di Eved, you are going to be Yotzei the mitzvah. If you don't have a Tanakh like that, or an ArtScroll Tanakh, if you don't have one, you can look at it in the Chumash, in the back of Shemos or Vayikra, whichever your Chumash has the Megillah, and read along and follow along when it was live, when the Zoom was being done in the shul. And by the way, that's exactly what we are going to be doing. When Eli Miller, our Shamus, reads the Megillah on Purim night and the next morning, we've arranged to have it Zoomed live for anyone who cannot, due to health reasons, come to shul. Now the question is, what happens if you can't get on the Zoom, but you can follow a recording of the Megillah? The din is, if you have a kosher Megillah, and as the recording is being played, you say along the words from the kosher Megillah, you are going to be Yotzei the mitzvah. And if you don't have a kosher Megillah, we go to the next step. Again, you take a full Tanakh and read along with the full Tanakh. Now, these are only emergency measures in a B'di Eved sense. B'di Eved means after the fact. But under unusual circumstances, that's what we sometimes have to do. Okay. We'll take questions on this after the Shiur. I'm sure there are a lot of questions about this, but basically, this is what we're doing in order to see to it that we get the mitzvah done in a proper fashion. Now, I want to talk to you about Mishloach Manos and Matanos Le'Evyonim, which are and the Seuda. On Friday, we send Mishloach Manos. The pasuk in the Megillah says that it's a day of two gifts that we share with each other. One is Mishloach Manos Ish L'Re'ehu. Mishloach means sending. Manos means portions. Ish, one person. L'Re'ehu, to his or her friend. So the pasuk clearly states that we're sending it to one friend because it says Ish L'Re'ehu. And Ish doesn't mean only man over here. Ish means human, right? So a human sends L'Re'ehu to his friend or her friend. And consequently, Mishloach Manos, you send two gifts of food. Manos means portions of food. Two foods to one other person. As soon as you take two foods ready to eat, that's lechatchila, two foods ready to eat, and you give it to your neighbor, one neighbor, just one, you did the entire mitzvah of Shalach Manos. You don't have to send any more. You've done the mitzvah. Finished. You want to do more? Kol hakavod. But in the pandemic, it might not be a wise thing to do because it is not a good idea to have people sending things to each other and coming in close contact with each other without the proper precautions. If you can do it, kol hakavod, but it's totally unnecessary. And many poskim, and even the Chafetz Chaim, he mentions it in the halacha of Mishloach Manos and Matanos Le'Evyonim. He says, and he quotes the Rambam, it is much better to give more Matanos Le'Evyonim, more gifts to the poor, than to give Shalach Manos. Fulfill the mitzvah with one Shalach Manos. The rest of it, give gifts to the poor. And to the poor, you have to give one gift to each of two people. Then you fulfill the mitzvah. Now, on our website, you can go to the yibeth.org website and donate money. One, to Matanos Le'Evyonim. There'll be a box in which you can click to donate money, Matanos Le'Evyonim, which will be given out on Purim by our Shamus Eli Miller. And two, you can donate Matanos Le'Evyonim to the shul so that our program of Torah and Tefillah can continue unabated, and that we can bring all the gifts that Young Israel Beth-El supplies to the entire community and even beyond with your help. So you go on the website and you can give Matanos Le'Evyonim both to people who are poor and to the shul, which welcomes your support. Now, on Purim Day, yeah, you have to give Shalach Manos. But we already spoke, you don't have to give more than one. I'm just going to tell personally, because I know a lot of people, I can't bless my congregation enough. They're just wonderful people. They send me every year such beautiful, beautiful gift baskets of Shalach Manos. This year, because of the pandemic, please refrain and give the money to tzedakah. Because we want to reciprocate to you when you bring something to us, and we don't want to put other people in any danger whatsoever, even though we've had the vaccine and even though we are, Baruch Hashem, healthy. But we don't want a situation to develop where one may inadvertently cause any bad illness to anyone else. So my recommendation, despite the fact that I love giving Shalach Manos, and it's one of the greatest times of the year when we feel so close to all our friends, not this year. We'll save it for another year, Yitz Hashem, and we'll do it that time. And now I want to talk to you about the Seuda. Seudas Purim is one of the great events of the Purim day. It's a lively, spirited, enjoyable feast, the way it's supposed to be. But on Erev Shabbos, we have a particular problem. The din is that after Mincha Katana, one is not allowed to eat a major meal. It's interesting to note that in Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, well, I shouldn't even, in Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, this year is not going to be the Suda on Friday. This year, the Suda is going to be Sunday. But if Friday would have been Shushan Purim, the minhag in Yerushalayim is they make the feast even later in the day. They start early, but they make it even later in the day, and it lasts up until Shabbos, Kabbalah Shabbos. What they do then is they daven right where they are, Kabbalah Shabbos, with a minyan in the house, and then they put a tablecloth over the challah. They take out another cup of wine and make kiddush. It's called Pores Mapa Umakadesh. And then they have the Shabbos meal. We do not do that. Our Seudah here on Friday should begin before noon. Should begin sometime in the morning, preferably no later than 11 o'clock or so. And it can last until approximately 3 o'clock, not beyond. That's a long Seudah, because after all, we don't want to take away from the holiness and Kedusha of Shabbos when we are supposed to have a full Seudah again. Now, some people, maybe they're younger and they can eat their heart's content, but for most of us, if we're going to have a big meal at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, up to 3 o'clock with wine and meat and bread and condiments and desserts, you know, I don't know about the Viennese table. Some places they bring out Vienna, you know. So with all the desserts, and then you're going to sit down and have a full meal on Shabbos, you're not going to want to. And we don't want to take away from the holiness of the Shabbos. Consequently, hold down the meal a little bit and try to finish no later than 3 o'clock. Okay, Rabosai, we've just about covered all there is to speak in this period of time about the uniqueness of Tainus Esther and Purim this year. I am now going to open the floor. I'm going to unmute, okay, if I can, yeah. Right. And we're going to unmute, or you can unmute yourself for that matter. If you have any questions,
Rebbe, one question now.
Okay.
Are you allowed to give your wife a shlachmonis? Is that considered giving us one shlachmonis?
Actually not, because what we say is ishto kagufo, a husband and wife are like one, and therefore it's really taking from one pocket and putting into the other. All right?
But her child I could give.
Yes, as long as they're not on your table. It's preferable they should be. The idea behind the Shalach Manis is this: I am sharing my Seudah with you. The truth of the matter is, it would be preferable if all the Jewish people would get together at one Seudah, all right? At one Seudah. Since we would all get together at one Seudah, that would be beautiful, but we can't, so we send it to our neighbor, and what we should send them are things that are usually eaten at the Seudah. Even though today has become a candy platter, the truth is it should be foods that are normally eaten at the Seudah. Okay? All right, any other questions?
Rebbe, you said that if worst comes to worst, you could have Parsha Zachar in August. If that's the case, how come we don't stand up in Parsha Zachar and Kiseitze? And say Zecher and Zecher.
All right, well, okay. Those are minhagim that we do in order to get people to pay close attention. It's interesting that you're asking this question, because in our shul, we have a very unusual, I don't call it unusual, it's a halachically proper minhag. In our shul, when the Aseres HaDibros or when the Shiur, Oz Yashir is read, we announce that you shouldn't stand up just for the Shira or just for the Aseres HaDibros. You should actually stand up at the beginning of the Aliyah for Baruch Hu, when it is proper to stand up. Because there are poskim that hold that it's not proper to stand more for one piece of Torah than for another piece of Torah. Now, we do the same thing whenever we're finished any one of the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. We don't stand up for the last pasuk. We stand up for the entire Aliyah because you're supposed to stand up for Baruch Hu. And that's why the minhag of standing for Parsha Zachor or for the Aseres HaDibros or for the last pasuk in the Torah only came about because they wanted to show the value and the chashivas. But the truth of the matter is, not every posek agrees with it, and it would be more proper for us to stand at the beginning of the Aliyah. And you don't have to stand for the reading of Parshas Kisetzah. Okay? Any other questions?
One more question.
Yes, go ahead.
You said that b'diavad, that if you don't have a Megillah and you're hearing the Megillah from home, you should listen from the Tanakh. I heard that's also true, that when a person gets mafter and he learns the Haftorah, he should learn from the Tanakh too. If you don't have the cloth.
That is true. Very good point. Exactly right. Now, in many shuls, they learn, like you say, from a cloth, meaning from a navi that is written like a Sefer Torah on parchment. In other shuls, they use a big, gigantic Koran to read the Haftorah. And in other shuls, they take a Sefer of Haftoros that are all bound together in one book as a book of the Haftorahs, and they utilize that as an entire Tanakh and read the Haftorah from that. So there are different minhagim on this. The best thing is a klaf. Second best, a whole Tanakh. Third best, one that has every single week's Haftorah. Okay. Any other?
A fourth one is a chumash.
Right. If you have no choice, yes.
Okay. What about seeing or looking into, let's say, on Zoom on an actual Megillah, but not in your house? It's on Zoom, the Megillah, an actual klaf Megillah. Would that be proper?
Well, again, we're dealing with advanced technological issues here. Lechatchila, it would not be the optimum way of fulfilling the mitzvah.
We're talking about the Evid.
But bidi Evid, if you have nothing else, yes, I would say you should do that. Yes. Again, it's very bidi Evid, but we're dealing with very unusual times, and we're dealing with unusual circumstances. Look, there's a halacha, very interesting halacha, that says like this. Let's say a person is on a ship at sea. Yeah? They're in a ship at sea. Right?
Yeah.
And they won't have, no, they're going to leave. They're leaving to go on the ship on the 12th day in the month of Adar.
Oh.
So they're not going to have a Megillah at sea, but they do have a Megillah on the 11th day in the month of Adar. So the halacha says, read the Megillah on day 11.
Right.
Okay? Good. Without a bracha.
Right.
Without a bracha.
Right.
Wow.
If on the 14th of Adar, the boat docks, and you can get to a shul and get a hold of a Megillah or hear a reading of the Megillah, you can lane the Megillah with a bracha, even though in the Evan you were Yotzei with the reading on the 11th. It's very interesting. In fact, the halacha goes so far as to say that if you won't have a Megillah on the 11th, but you'll have one on the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, even the first day in the month of Adar, you can read it then too. As long as it's in the month of Adar, but not beyond the 15th. So there are a lot of b'di'eveds here, and what we're trying to do is to do the most lechatchila that we're capable under the circumstances. That's why we have this shiur tonight. All right?
Another question on that topic, Rebbe. During the 9 days, if I hear a siyum on Zoom or on TV, could I eat meat? If I hear a siyum.
Well, okay.
Okay,
I'll tell you.
good question.
I'm going to answer this question in two ways. All right? I'm going to answer this question. Hearing the siyum on Zoom is a virtual siyum, right?
Uh-huh.
I would say you can then have a virtual seuda.
No.
Okay. However, it should be noted that there are some people that rely on hearing a siyum virtually and eating a regular meal during the 9 days because they participate in
Right.
siyum. And it would be very difficult to say that they're doing something wrong. I would say it's just borderline b'diavad. All right.
But according to what the rabbi said for Moshe, that you're hearing Avdallah on the phone, you're yaitza. So why shouldn't you be yaitza with the siyum?
I'll explain the difference. Havdalah is a requirement. All right. The siyum is not a requirement. That's number one. Secondly, would you normally be attending that particular siyum were it not for the 9 days? Because there is an opinion in the halacha of the 9 days that if you're not a regular at the shiur and they're making a siyum, you should not participate in the siyum. So it's a very b'diavad and it's somewhat different. Now, if someone did this and someone ate meat at a siyum that they heard virtually, I'm not going to say they did enough. You asked me if I recommend it, I would say I don't really recommend it.
Yeah, but nowadays, people learn on the telephone.
That's true. That's true. So it's less of a b'diavad at this point.
It's common. It's more common now.
More common. Okay, yeah, it's a good point.
Right.
We're not,
They also
we're not saying it's not possible. Again, you know, we're being reasonable and saying that the halacha would condone it. But once again, if possible, let's try to do it the best way we can. Again, these measures that I spoke about tonight, please try to keep in mind. These are emergency measures. This is not what we are seeking. It's not what we want. In life in general, we have to ask ourselves, do we want our lives to be virtual lives? Or do we want the real thing? And consequently, I think it's important to realize that as much as we permit under unusual circumstances certain leniencies, but we don't want to say that that is the norm, because we don't want that to be the norm. We want to have not a virtual roast beef sandwich, you know. No, we want the real thing. Okay.
But I have actually seen the like a Fleischiger restaurant advertising that they're gonna have a siyum every night in the restaurant.
That's what you're doing camp. That's doing camps.
Okay, all right. You know,
hotels.
You got to make business.
Mark, you're right. That's what they. No, that's what they have in the sleepaway camps. They have a siyum every night. But that's true.
It would be a wonderful thing if we all made a siyum on a different masechta every night of the 9 days. Kol hakavod. Go learn. I'm with you. Okay.
Rabbi, this is Yosef. I have a question, Rabbi.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be besimcha, especially in Adar. Where does that come from? We're supposed to be besimcha all year long, but why especially on Adar?
All right, that's a statement from the Gemara. It's a statement from the Gemara in Masechta Megillah, in which it says, Misha nichnas adar marbin b'simcha, Misha nichnas av mema'atin b'simcha. It should be noted that it doesn't say we're not supposed to be simcha all year long. We say every morning in Mizmor L'Soda, Ivdu Es Hashem B'Simcha. What we're saying is, Mishen Nichnas Adar Mar Bin B'Simcha. We increase Simcha. Rav Avigdor Miller, Zechreinu L'Vracha, used to point out, this is such an interesting statement, because what it's saying is that we have the inner capacity to increase our Simcha. It says, Mishen Nichnas Adar Mar Bin B'Simcha. You can actually increase Simcha. You have the inner capacity to increase joy. And therefore, if you're going to have a time in which you're going to plug into that inner capacity, the proper time to plug into that is beginning in Chodesh Adar, because it's a month of Simcha for the Jewish people.
Rebbe, let me just go back to that one question. How come a Bechor and Erev Pesach doesn't have to learn? He has to hear a scene. And to eat fleishik, the Rebbe is saying that he has to learn the whole Masechta.
Well, I really didn't say that, but wouldn't it be wonderful if the Bechor was able to learn the Masechta? Yeah.
True. But didn't we just say that the Rebbe doesn't hold so much that if he only joins the scene?
Well, no. Okay.
I think the Bechor has to partake in the soup.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's save that for when we get to it, okay?
No, okay. Rabbi Snow, on Erev Pesach, if a Bechor goes to a bris, he partook in a Sudas mitzvah. Does it have to be right?
Okay, let's be understanding about something. If there was a wedding on the morning before Pesach, or a bris, or a pidyon haben, you could participate in the Seudah. But it's very difficult to organize that to happen on that morning. So therefore we make a siyum. Okay, it's a leniency. The Shach in Hilchas Talmud Torah brings down that a siyum, which is a great Seudas mitzvah, it's actually based on the Gemara, that therefore even a mourner in Yud Beis Chodesh for a parent is allowed to participate in a siyum. That's not our topic for today. Let's leave that for when we get to Pesach. We'll discuss it at that point. Have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone.
Rabbi, one more question.
Wait. Well, before we get a question, announcement. Next Wednesday night, not Thursday night. Thursday night is Purim. But next Wednesday night at 8:30, I'm going to be giving a shiur on Megillas Esther. Just on Megillas Esther. Okay?
That's great.
Make sure that's in the newsletter.
And I'm
I think it's in the newsletter.
It's in the newsletter. And I'm asking you a question right now, and I'm going to ask you to see if you can answer for me next Wednesday night. Okay?
What about Tuesday night? Are we going to have a shiur?
No, Tuesday night.
That's another. That's
Gemara shiur. Wednesday night. Special shiur on Megillas Esther. Here's my question.
Yeah.
And you have to really, really give a solid answer. Okay?
Yeah.
What was the miracle of Purim? You better think about it. I want you to
That's two questions.
It's one question.
No, the Rebbe asked for two questions. One about Hashem in the Megillah.
No, that's just, you can look for that.
One's enough.
What? Pinpoint. Tell me what was the miracle of Purim. Okay, Rabosai. Everybody a wonderful good night.
Rabbi,
Rebbe, it's Mordechai, Rebbe. I love you. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Thank you, Rebbe.
Someone had before? No?
What?
Someone had one more question, no?
Yes, I did. I don't remember if the rabbi said how much is the minimum to give for Matanas Leviyon to be Yaitzer.
Okay, I didn't mention it. Thank you. Okay. Matanas Leviyonim is supposed to be enough money in order to enable the poor person to have a Seudah. All right.
Wow.
Now,
That's expensive
now
today.
what's a su'uda?
Right.
Hold on. What's a su'uda? Okay, let's take a minimum su'uda. All right. A minimum.
Two slices of pizza and a soda.
Yes. How much is it?
$6.
$5.
$6? That's
Yes.
what you give Matanos Le'Evyonim to two poor people. All right. One quick story, which is on the Parsha video. They asked some very great rabbis. I have a whole list of rabbis they asked it to. If you could invite 3 people from all of history to join you for a Shabbos meal, which 3 people would you invite? And now there are many great rabbis and personalities that we asked this question. One personality said he would invite Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rambam, and Sandy Koufax. Another person said he would invite Rashi and the Rambam and Moshe Rabbeinu.
Wow.
And another person said he would invite Rebbe Yehuda Anasi and Abaya and Rava. You understand? There were, but I want to tell you what here is the answer that Reb David Feinstein gave. The second he was asked that question, he said,
a poor person.
I find 3 poor people.
Very nice.
Okay.
Because that's the mitzvah.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Thank you.
Good Shabbos. Thank you
Good night.
very much.
Good night.
Everybody have a great Shabbos.
You too.
Good Shabbos.
Enjoy the reading of Parsha Zohar. Remember what our job is. Have a great Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Hey.
What did you just say?
Rebbe, I got one quick question. Can I send Rebbe a check in the mail?